alien girl could not sleep for many years, until this man climbed into her bed. Far beyond the edges of the Milky Way, on a planet bathed in gentle violet light, there lived a young alien girl named Lyra. Her skin shimmered like moonlight on water, and her eyes held the colors of 1,000 distant suns. Yet despite her beauty and her world's peaceful skies, Lyra had not slept for many years. Each night, while the rest of her planet slumbered under the twin moons, she wandered through the quiet halls of her home. Her planet, Urindor, was a place of calm and harmony, where the wind sang through crystalline towers and rivers flowed with glowing water. Its people were wise and serene, living lives of study and art. But Lyra, for reasons no healer or sage could explain, was trapped in endless wakefulness. She had tried everything. The elders gave her soothing herbs that shimmered like liquid starlight. She sat in meditation chambers filled with warm air and soft music that mimicked the planet's heartbeat. She even floated in the glowing lakes that reflected the skies. Nothing worked. Night after night her mind raced, her body refused rest, and her heart grew heavier with every passing year. Lyra's parents, both scholars of Urindor's ancient knowledge, were deeply worried. They consulted every expert, every teacher, every wise elder. Each time the answer was the same. Some sleep is denied by the mind itself. Perhaps only a new perspective, a new mind, could unlock it. And so, a decision was made. Word spread across galaxies that Urindor sought help. Not from the usual healers, not from distant scholars of their own kind, but from Earth, the young, daring, and unpredictable blue planet far away. The humans, it was said, possessed a strange curiosity and ingenuity. They solved problems in ways no other race could. It was not long before a human scientist, Dr. Adrian Cole, arrived in a sleek starship that gleamed like a comet. His arrival was quiet, marked only by the soft hum of the ship as it descended into the violet forests surrounding Lyra's home. He was a man of patience and gentle hands, with eyes that carried both curiosity and kindness. To the people of Urindor, humans were strange, always moving, always creating, always asking questions. But they were also capable of wonder, the elders said, and perhaps it was wonder Lyra needed most. Lyra first saw him in the garden, a place where the glowing trees bent their branches toward the ground, and streams of liquid light ran over stones carved with the history of her people. She was cautious, as she always was around new faces. Sleep deprivation had made her wary. But when she looked into his eyes, she sensed something different, something warm and human, yet familiar in a way she could not explain. "Hello, Lyra," Adrian said softly, bowing slightly. His voice carried a calm confidence. "I hear you've been having trouble sleeping." Lyra nodded, her long fingers twisting nervously. I do not sleep. Not at night, not at any time. I have tried everything, but nothing works." Adrian smiled gently. "Then we'll try something different, not the usual methods, not what anyone else has done, something new." The next days were a strange mixture of hope and frustration. Adrian observed Lyra carefully. He watched how her eyes darted at every sound, how her body moved even when she tried to stay still, how she seemed to feel everything in the world more intensely than others. He introduced ideas she had never considered. He told stories of humans who solved problems with creativity and patience. He brought small devices that emitted soft pulses of light and sound, designed to mimic natural patterns of rest. Sometimes he asked Lyra to help him build these devices, letting her focus her restless energy into creation. Slowly, she began to feel something she hadn't felt in years: curiosity without worry, and a gentle excitement that did not tire her mind. One evening, as the twin moons rose high in the violet sky, Lyra wandered to the edge of a cliff overlooking a forest that glowed faintly in the night. Adrian followed, carrying one of his devices carefully in his hands. "Do you know why humans sometimes cannot sleep?" he asked, standing beside her. Lyra shook her head. "No, your kind is different. You sleep differently," Adrian chuckled softly. "Yes, we do, and sometimes when our minds are too busy, we can't rest. But often it is not the body that refuses, it is the mind that fears letting go. Perhaps your mind fears something too." Lyra considered this, staring at the streams of light below. "I do not fear anything," she whispered. "I only feel everything too much. The colors, the sounds, the thoughts, they never stop, they never let me rest." Adrian nodded. "Then maybe we need to show your mind that it is safe to rest. Not through force, not through medicine, but through experience, through understanding." The first night he stayed, he simply sat beside her, observing her breathing, telling her stories of Earth, of oceans that stretched endlessly, of deserts that shone like gold in the sun, of mountains taller than the skies of Urindor. At first, Lyra could not relax. Her eyes followed every movement, her body twitched, her mind raced. But Adrian was patient. He never rushed her. He simply shared the world he knew, calmly and consistently. By the third night, something remarkable began to happen. Lyra felt her eyelids grow heavy for just a moment, the first in years. She shook it off, afraid that she was imagining it, but Adrian noticed and simply smiled. "Small steps," he whispered. Night after night, the process continued. They walked through glowing forests, floated over luminescent lakes, and talked about the stars. Adrian taught Lyra to focus on a single rhythm, the beating of her heart, the pulse of her thoughts, the sound of the wind. He called it the human trick, a way to calm the mind when everything else was overwhelming. Lyra began to understand, slowly, that her sleeplessness was not a punishment or a flaw. It was a part of her, an intensity of being that needed guidance rather than medicine. And with Adrian's presence, she found that guidance. One night, as the first faint light of dawn touched the violet skies, Lyra did something she hadn't done in over a decade. She laid down fully, closed her eyes, and let herself drift. Not deep sleep, not yet, but a quiet, gentle rest. Her body relaxed, her mind slowed, and she realized that for the first time in years she felt safe. Adrian sat beside her, quietly watching the soft rise and fall of her chest. He understood that this was only the beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless. And somewhere in the violet light, a star blinked brightly, as if it knew that a small miracle had begun, one born of patience, ingenuity, and the uniquely human ability to understand another being's mind. Lyra's journey was far from over, and her sleepless nights were not gone. But for the first time, she glimpsed the possibility of rest, and perhaps even of dreams. And she realized that sometimes, help did not come from magic or medicine, but from a simple, patient human willing to understand her world. And so, on a quiet cliff under twin moons, a bond formed between the alien girl who could not sleep and the human man who had chosen to stay. An unlikely pair whose patience, empathy, and courage would change not just one life, but perhaps the fate of two worlds. Lyra woke that morning with a strange lightness in her chest. For the first time in years, her body felt calm, as though it remembered a rhythm it had long forgotten. She sat on the edge of her floating bed, watching the twin moons sink below the violet horizon. A gentle hum rose from the forests, and for once it did not overwhelm her senses. It seemed to welcome her, not demand attention. Adrian was already in the garden, adjusting one of his soft glow devices. He noticed Lyra observing him and waved. "Good morning, Lyra," he said warmly. "How do you feel?" Lyra hesitated. She wanted to say she felt fully rested, but she knew better. "Better, but not completely," she admitted. "It is strange. I feel lighter, but my thoughts are still too loud." Adrian nodded. "That is normal. Your mind has been awake for years. It will take time for it to quiet down, but we are making progress." They walked together through the forest, the glowing plants casting soft shadows on their path. Adrian asked her to describe every sound she heard, every subtle movement in the air. At first, Lyra's observations were overwhelming, but Adrian guided her, teaching her to focus on one layer of sensation at a time. "The world is full of things to notice," he said, "but noticing all at once is exhausting. Learn to prioritize, to observe without being consumed." Lyra practiced this daily. She learned to listen to the rivers without being distracted by the wind. She felt the light of the moons without being blinded by it. She discovered that when she slowed her perception, her thoughts became easier to manage, less chaotic, less urgent. It was as though her mind had been a storm, and Adrian was teaching her to step outside the whirlwind. Despite progress, new challenges emerged. Lyra began experiencing strange dreams, fragments of visions she could not understand. Shapes, colors, and voices appeared in her mind during the brief rest she allowed herself. She would awaken startled, her heart racing, unsure if she had slept at all. "I think my mind is trying to tell me something," Lyra said one evening as they watched the twin moons rise. "These visions, they are not like the rest of the world. They feel important." Adrian listened carefully. Dreams can be messages, yes. Sometimes the mind needs to express what it cannot during waking hours. The trick is not to fear them, but to explore them carefully. So they began a new exercise. Lyra would describe her visions as soon as they appeared, and Adrian would help her draw them, build small models, or simulate them with his devices. Each image became a piece of a puzzle, a key to understanding her mind's hidden patterns. Over weeks, they discovered that Lyra's sleeplessness was not just a personal struggle. It was connected to the planet itself. The violet forests, the glowing rivers, the crystalline towers, they all emitted frequencies that resonated with her nervous system. Her unique biology amplified these vibrations, keeping her mind active when the rest of her people slept peacefully. "This is incredible," Adrian said one night, examining a model of Lyra's dream world constructed from small holographic projections. "Your sleeplessness is a sign of your unique connection to your planet. Most beings would sleep through this energy, but you feel it all." Lyra tilted her head. "So I am different," Adrian smiled. "Yes, and being different is not a weakness. It is a strength. You can perceive things no one else can, but your mind needs balance to use that strength." Lyra's eyes sparkled. For the first time, she did not feel broken. She felt special, capable, alive. She began to embrace her unusual senses instead of fearing them. She practiced walking through the violet forests at night, letting the light and sound wash over her in controlled ways. She experimented with meditation, assisted by Adrian's devices, learning to match her heartbeat to the gentle pulses of her world. Yet despite these victories, her mind sometimes rebelled. One night she awoke in a panic, visions of swirling stars and impossible landscapes spinning in her mind. Her body felt weak, as though the effort of staying awake for years had left her permanently fragile. She stumbled into the garden seeking Adrian's calm presence. "I cannot do it," she whispered, tears shining in her luminescent eyes. "The visions, they are too much. I feel trapped inside myself." Adrian knelt beside her. "You are not trapped, Lyra. You are exploring." Sometimes the mind pushes back when it feels it is losing control. That is natural, but you are stronger than the fear. He held up a small device that emitted a soft, rhythmic glow. "Focus on this. Let it guide you. Match your breath to its rhythm. Your mind can follow a steady pattern. Trust it." Lyra hesitated, then took a deep breath. She concentrated, letting the device's gentle pulse anchor her thoughts. Slowly, the swirling visions began to slow, the chaos receding into something she could observe without fear. Her heart beat in rhythm with the device. Her mind, once a storm, began to resemble a calm lake, reflecting the light of the twin moons. Hours passed. Lyra did not sleep fully, but she rested. She realized that progress was not instant perfection. It was patience, practice, and the willingness to face her fears. Adrian's human persistence and understanding made this possible. In the following weeks, Lyra's confidence grew. She experimented with her planet's natural energies, learning to manipulate small frequencies to calm her own mind. She walked through glowing forests, floating lakes, and crystalline towers, observing patterns that no other being noticed. Her sleepless nights became less frequent, her rest deeper. Adrian watched with pride. He marveled at Lyra's resilience, her intelligence, and her willingness to adapt. Humans often solved problems with ingenuity, he thought, but Lyra reminded him that strength also came from patience, empathy, and courage. Together, they were not just helping one alien girl, they were discovering how beings from different worlds could learn from each other. One evening, as they stood on a cliff watching the violet horizon, Lyra spoke quietly. "Adrian, I think I understand now. My sleeplessness, it is not a curse. It is a gift, but I had to learn how to manage it. You helped me see that." Adrian smiled. "And you taught me something too, Lyra. You taught me how to see the world through a mind so different from mine. That is a rare gift." A gentle wind passed over them, carrying the faint scent of glowing flowers and the soft hum of the planet. Lyra felt a calm she had never known, a peace that was not the absence of thought but the mastery of it. She knew there would still be difficult nights, but she also knew that with guidance, patience, and understanding, she could face them. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Lyra continued to rest more fully, to experience her visions without fear, to explore the depths of her planet's mysteries. Adrian introduced new technologies, new exercises, and new ways to harmonize her mind with her world. Each step was a small victory, a proof that human ingenuity and compassion could bridge even the most unimaginable differences. Then came a night that would change everything. Lyra lay in her floating bed, staring at the twin moons. She felt the familiar pull of her unique connection to the planet, the vibrations that had once kept her awake. But this time, instead of panic, she felt control. She concentrated, aligning her mind with the frequencies around her. She let herself drift. And finally, after years of sleepless nights, Lyra fell into a deep, complete sleep. Adrian watched from the garden, silently celebrating the victory. It was a quiet triumph, born not of magic or medicine, but of understanding, patience, and the human ability to solve problems with care and ingenuity. Lyra's journey was far from over, but she had learned the greatest lesson. That strength was not about escaping challenges, but facing them with courage and guidance. And in that lesson, both she and Adrian found something extraordinary, a bond that transcended worlds, built on trust, learning, and hope. For the first time in years, the violet planet was at peace, and Lyra slept under the twin moons, dreaming not of fear, but of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Months had passed since Lyra first found the ability to rest. Her nights were no longer endless wakefulness but periods of quiet sleep, dreams full of strange beauty and color. Yet, the planet she had long called home had its own rhythms, and those rhythms were beginning to speak to her in ways she could barely understand. One evening, as the twin moons rose high above the violet forests, Lyra awoke not from her own rest but from a subtle tremor that ran through the ground. The light of the moons shimmered differently, as if the world itself were adjusting its breath. She looked around the floating towers of her city and noticed faint vibrations echoing through the crystal structures. Something was stirring. Adrian, who had been examining her dream projections in the garden, noticed her sudden alertness. "Lyra," he asked, stepping closer. "What is it?" "The planet, it's changing," Lyra whispered. Her eyes reflected the soft light of the moons, wide and alert. "I can feel it. The frequencies, they are shifting." Adrian's brow furrowed. "Shifting how?" Lyra reached out her hands, letting the subtle pulse of energy pass through her fingers. "The rivers, the trees, even the air, everything is moving differently. It's like Urandor is alive in a new way, and it wants me to notice." Curious and cautious, Adrian followed her as she led him into the violet forest. The glowing plants bent gently as they passed, humming faint melodies that seemed almost like communication. Lyra focused, feeling the rhythm of her planet, sensing patterns in the vibrations, understanding things that no one else could. "This is incredible," Adrian murmured. "Urindor itself is interacting with you." Lyra nodded. "I think so. It is as if my sleeplessness was preparing me. All those years awake, maybe I was meant to sense this." Adrian looked at her thoughtfully. Humans often solved problems through observation, creativity, and courage. Lyra's unique biology, combined with her intense awareness, made her more than an individual. She was a bridge between her planet and its mysteries. Over the next days, the subtle tremors grew stronger. Small clusters of glowing plants shifted out of their usual patterns, rivers ran in unusual spirals, and the crystal towers hummed in resonance. Lyra discovered that the frequencies formed complex sequences, almost like messages. The challenge was interpreting them. Adrian set up equipment to measure and analyze the vibrations. He taught Lyra to watch patterns in her dreams and compare them to the signals around them. They created holographic simulations, projecting the planet's frequencies into shapes and colors they could manipulate. Through these exercises, Lyra began to see a connection, a rhythm that tied her very consciousness to Urindor. "This is amazing," Adrian said one afternoon as they examined a projection of interlocking pulses. "Your mind can actually synchronize with the planet's energy." "That's extraordinary. Humans have never seen anything like this." Lyra felt both excitement and responsibility. "It is beautiful," she said softly, "but I also feel it could be dangerous. If I cannot understand it fully, if the rhythm shifts too suddenly, it might affect everyone." Adrian nodded gravely. "Then we will understand it together. That is what humans do. We observe, we experiment, and we learn, step by step." Their work intensified. Lyra spent hours focusing on her senses, feeling the smallest shifts in color, temperature, and vibration. Adrian monitored her readings, adjusting the devices to align with her perception. Slowly, they began to predict the patterns of the planet. The frequencies formed sequences that, when followed carefully, could prevent sudden surges or disturbances in Urindor's delicate balance. Yet, despite their progress, the planet's energy held surprises. One night, as Lyra and Adrian observed the forest from a cliff, a massive pulse surged through the ground, sending waves of light cascading across the trees. Lyra stumbled, her senses overloaded, and for the first time fear entered her mind. "I cannot control it," she cried. "It's too strong." Adrian grabbed her hand, steadying her. "You can. We just need to synchronize faster. Trust me and trust yourself." He adjusted a device to amplify the subtle pulses of the planet, creating a rhythm that Lyra could match with her mind. She closed her eyes, focusing on the beat, aligning her heartbeat, breath, and thoughts with the energy. Slowly, the storm of vibrations calmed, folding back into a manageable flow. Lyra opened her eyes, and for the first time she felt that she could truly influence the planet's rhythm. This is incredible," Lyra whispered. "I can feel the planet responding to me." Adrian smiled. "And I always knew you could. You just needed to trust yourself." As the weeks passed, Lyra grew more confident in her ability to harmonize with Urindor. She discovered that her dreams could predict the planet's subtle changes. She created exercises with Adrian that strengthened this connection, blending her intuitive understanding with his scientific precision. But then, new anomalies appeared. Certain regions of the violet forest began glowing unevenly. Rivers twisted into spirals they had never formed before. Even the air seemed charged with energy. Lyra sensed a shift that was not random. It was a signal, but one she could not fully decode. "We need to explore it," Adrian said, preparing their hovercraft. "Patterns only make sense when you observe them in the world itself." They journeyed deep into the glowing forest, following the anomalies. Lyra's senses guided them, detecting subtle differences in color, sound, and pulse. They reached a secluded glade where the energy converged in a massive, swirling vortex of light and vibration. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered, awe in her voice. "But it is unstable." Adrian nodded, carefully observing. "We need to stabilize it. If this pulse grows, it could disrupt the entire ecosystem. Your connection can guide it, but we must act carefully." Lyra closed her eyes, placing her hands over the glowing vortex. She felt every vibration, every pulse, every shift in energy. Slowly, she began to align her own heartbeat with the vortex, her mind merging with the flow of the planet. Adrian adjusted the devices to support her, amplifying her influence and stabilizing the outer currents. Hours passed. Lyra's body trembled from the effort, but she did not falter. The vortex slowed, its chaotic pulses folding into a gentle, rhythmic pattern. The forest responded immediately, the glowing plants aligned, the rivers smoothed, and the air felt calm. Adrian exhaled in relief. "You did it, Lyra, you actually did it." Lyra opened her eyes, exhausted but radiant. "We did it," she corrected. "You helped me understand how to focus, how to control the rhythm. I could not have done it alone." That night, as they returned to the city, Lyra felt a new sense of purpose. Her sleepless years had prepared her for this. Her mind's intensity was not a curse but a gift. She had learned to harmonize with her planet, to understand its pulses, and to protect its delicate balance. Adrian watched her quietly, marveling at her growth. Humans often solved problems with ingenuity, but Lyra reminded him that patience, courage, and empathy were just as important. She had transformed her weakness into strength, guided by human insight and cooperation. And somewhere in the violet light of the twin moons, Urindor itself seemed to hum in approval, acknowledging the alien girl who could now sleep and the human who had chosen to understand her. Lyra's journey was far from over. Greater challenges awaited, mysteries yet to uncover, and perhaps even new worlds to explore. But for now, she felt the harmony of her planet within herself, the rhythm of life flowing through her mind and body. She understood that she was no longer just an observer. She was a participant in the living heartbeat of her world. And together, human and alien, they had begun to unlock the true potential of cooperation, understanding, and the remarkable power of minds willing to work together across worlds. The night Lyra truly understood her purpose, the sky over Urindor changed. The twin moons did not rise as they always had. Instead, their light bent softly, forming pale rings across the clouds. The forests below glowed brighter than ever, and the rivers hummed in deep, steady tones. The planet was not in danger, but it was calling. Lyra felt it the moment she opened her eyes. She sat up slowly in her floating bed, heart calm, mind clear. For the first time in her life, she had slept deeply through the entire night. No sudden waking, no racing thoughts, no fear, but now something was different. "The pulse is stronger," she whispered. Adrian was already awake. His instruments filled the room with quiet lights and soft beeps. He looked up at Lyra, concern mixed with awe. "You felt it too," he said. Lyra nodded. "Urindor is not just reacting anymore, it is synchronizing." Across the planet, the crystal towers began to glow in unison. Cities paused their activity as citizens looked to the sky. Elders felt the shift in ancient meditation chambers. Scholars stopped their work, sensing something historic unfolding. The planet was aligning its energy fully, completely, for the first time in recorded history. Adrian studied the readings carefully. "This level of coherence shouldn't be possible," he said quietly. "Unless," he looked at Lyra, "unless the planet finally has a conscious anchor." Lyra swallowed. "You mean me?" Adrian didn't answer right away. Humans understood responsibility well, sometimes too well. "I mean," he said gently, "that your mind has become a bridge, not a controller, a translator." Lyra stepped outside onto the balcony. The air vibrated softly around her, warm and welcoming. She felt no pain, no overload, only clarity. All those sleepless years, all that noise, all that intensity, It had been training. Suddenly, the harmony faltered. A deep wave rolled through the ground. Not violent, but unstable. The forests dimmed unevenly. Rivers twisted again. The pulse began to drift out of alignment. Adrian's device alarm sounded softly. "The synchronization is collapsing," he said. "If the planet can't stabilize this transition, the feedback could damage ecosystems across Urindor." Lyra closed her eyes. The planet's rhythm rushed into her awareness like a vast ocean. She understood instantly. "It's too big," she said. "Urindor is trying to align everything at once. It needs guidance." Adrian stepped beside her. "Then we guide it together." They moved quickly to the central convergence platform, an ancient structure no one had used in centuries. It was built for a purpose long forgotten, now glowing as if it remembered. Lyra stood at its center. Adrian adjusted his equipment around the platform, syncing it not to machines, but to her heartbeat. "Humans learned something important," Adrian said calmly. "Complex systems don't stabilize by force. They stabilize through feedback, patience, and trust." Lyra breathed slowly. She did not try to control the planet. She listened. She allowed Urindor's immense presence to flow through her awareness, filtering it gently, the way Adrian had taught her to manage her thoughts. She focused on balance, not silence, not dominance. Across the planet, the pulse slowed. The rivers straightened. The forests brightened evenly. The towers chimed together in perfect harmony. Lyra's body trembled, but she did not panic. Adrian stayed close, adjusting frequencies, grounding her when the energy surged. "You're doing it," he said softly. Lyra opened her eyes and smiled. "I'm not doing it," she said. "We are." The final surge came like a deep breath from the world itself. Then peace. The sky cleared. The moons resumed their gentle paths. The planet settled into a steady, living rhythm, stronger, calmer, healthier than ever before. Urindor had found equilibrium. Lyra collapsed gently to her knees, exhausted but whole. Adrian caught her before she fell, steady and careful. "You stayed conscious the entire time," he said in awe. "No overload, no collapse." Lyra laughed weakly. "I slept when I needed to learn. Now I am awake when it matters." News spread quickly. The elders gathered, stunned by what had happened. The planet had entered a new era, one where its energy flowed smoothly, predictably, safely. Natural disasters ceased. Ecosystems flourished. Cities operated with unprecedented efficiency. And at the center of it all was Lyra. Not as a ruler, not as a weapon, but as a listener. She was offered titles, honors, authority. She refused them all. "I do not command Urindor," she said simply. "I understand it." Adrian prepared to leave weeks later. His mission was complete by every official measure. On his final night, Lyra met him beneath the twin moons. "I will sleep tonight," she said quietly, "and every night after." Adrian smiled. "I never doubted that." "You taught me something," Lyra continued. "Not just how to rest, but how to live inside my own mind." Adrian looked at the glowing forests, the calm sky. "Humans survive because we adapt, but sometimes we help others adapt too." Lyra extended her hand, touching his lightly, a gesture of trust. "When your people look to the stars," she said, "tell them Urindor listens." Adrian's ship lifted silently into the violet sky. Lyra watched until it became a star among stars. That night she lay down beneath open skies, the planet's rhythm steady within her. Her thoughts slowed naturally. Her breath deepened. And Lyra slept, not because she was exhausted, not because she was forced, but because she was finally at peace. Across the galaxy, humanity would one day learn what Urindor already knew, that the greatest strength humans bring to the stars is not power,